In this module, we take a look at time exposures, which can really be a lot of fun and produce some visually appealing results. Photographers, of course, control the amount of time the camera can record light by using shutter speed settings. When shooting time exposures, it's probably best to visualize the camera sensor as somewhat like a blank canvas that a painter would use, and that you as the photographer paint by deciding the various sources of light you'll use to paint your picture. When the shutter is open for an appropriate amount of time, light from a scene strikes the canvas and creates a digital image. The image is then quickly transferred to the camera card, and the canvas is blank once again. In very bright sunlight, fast shutter speeds are necessary to obtain a correct exposure. In low light and nighttime situations, slower shutter speeds are required. With creatively correct exposures, the photographer controls what's visible on the canvas. Creatively correct time exposures capture motion blur as well as stationary objects that will be in sharp focus. If a subject moves too fast for the shutter speed selected, that subject will have a ghost-like appearance or not be recorded at all by the sensor. The objective is to find the creatively correct shutter speed that captions motion blur when that's what you want, and a stationary object in sharp focus, or provide a ghost-like experience to provide context for the photo. In this 2-second exposure, the fast-moving drummers create ghost-like motion blur, while the background of the Blue Agave restaurant in downtown Fort Collins remains in sharp focus. This photo taken by Karen Rowe is 2 seconds, and she used an ISO of 1600. With the creatively correct exposure that we discussed earlier, the sensor captures the light in bright areas of a scene, but not in the dark areas. Here, Matthew lights the cigarette lighter in 3 different positions, and because when he moves his hand, he moves so quickly that the camera does not record the exposure, it appears as if he has 3 hands. Now, to get this effect, Matthew had to hold perfectly still, or at least his face perfectly still, so the photograph would turn out as you see it. In this scene, the cell phone light is bright enough to be captured by the camera sensor, but the ballet dancer's image is only captured when she holds still long enough for the sensor to record her image. This is a 5-second time exposure. For this 6-second exposure, Maddie Shackelford placed her camera on a tripod, used the camera's self-timer mode to create a 2-second shutter delay, and then she skipped down the hallway near her apartment complex. She used a flashlight app on her phone to create that bullseye design as she moved away from the camera, but she stopped just very briefly, long enough for her ghost-like image to appear in the background, which again provides context for the photo. Anna Grubling took a photo in downtown Littleton, Colorado, and set up her tripod for this 4-second exposure. On the right, you see the sign is in perfectly sharp focus because it did not move, but on the left side of the photo, the light trails created by cars and buses passing appear to give you that ghost-like appearance once again. In this photo, 3 students got together and painted the CSU using their cell phones with the background of the Laurie Student Center on campus in sharp focus. This provides context and meaning for the photo and wouldn't work that well if it was just the CSU painted with light without any context or reference. Here, Nicole Beale created an artistic star using a bike light. The effect was made by a 2-second time exposure, and once again, we can see her ghost-like appearance in the background, which obviously provides the context that we want for this type of assignment. Here, Courtney used Christmas lights and an iPhone to create this painting with light effect. The 6-second exposure gave her time to run up and down and spin the different lights and do different techniques. And of course, this one lacks complete context, but we can see the foreground and we can see a little bit of the background, which really helps out. In this photo, Madison uses light sticks and a rear curtain flash to paint with light and also to get the subject in a little bit better focus. Although it is a little soft, it still works very well. This photo also shows how you can capture stationary objects in sharp focus, and the tilt-a-whirl, or that type of carnival ride in the background, is spinning so fast that it looks like a blur. David Kruk used this 30-second time exposure to get a lot of different special effects in his photo. For example, at first, in the 30-second time frame that he had, he ran out in front of the camera that was placed on a tripod with a shutter delay, and you can see his little ghost image on the right-hand side of the doorway. Then he returned to the camera and slowly zoomed it out, the lens outward, so they got this telescoping kind of psychedelic effect for the Gilsdorf garage sign. Here, using a fill flash in combination with the slow shutter speed allows the background to be present in sharp focus. The cars on the right are traveling away from the camera, so you just see the rear taillight ghost trails. And on the left-hand side, the cars are approaching the camera, so you see the headlights. And then a rear curtain flash or slow flash at the end of the exposure illuminates the subject in the middle. So a time exposure summary. It requires that you use a sturdy tripod and either a cable release cord or a self-timer setting in your camera. Slow shutter speed is necessary, usually 2 seconds or more is what I recommend for this assignment. And the best practice here is to capture both stationary objects that are in sharp focus to give us context and some motion blur with the subjects or with the lights. So for this assignment, see Canvas for complete information about your time exposure assignment, and good luck.